Hello everybody and welcome to my Disneyland Magical Audio Tour update for October 6th, 2017. I can't believe it's already been 2 weeks and a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks. First of all, it's again that time of year. Halloween season is upon us and I just want to show you my homepage. I've decorated it for the holiday. Now, I want to explain something about my song of the day really quickly before I get into the updates to the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. This year I'm doing a countdown of the Disney villains, and every day in October will feature a song and a different Disney villain, and the song will be based on said Disney villain. Today's villains, there's actually two today because it's the Siamese cats from Lady and the Tramp, Si and Am. So you'll see this every day at the top of the page on my home page, and then if you scroll down about 2/3 of the way, you'll see the song and you can play the song, and there's a picture. I also added these two special banners. Instead of the normal images, they're all Disney villain images. So if you click on here, if you want to hear all the songs that have been posted so far this month, you can click here, or at the top of the page you can click on Song of the Day Archive, and it will take you to a page with all of the songs that have so far been featured for this month, starting at the bottom with October 1st and up to today, which is October 6th. And you can see so far the villains I have featured have been Cruella de Vil, the Big Bad Wolf, Prince John from Robin Hood, Hades, Barnaby from the live-action musical Babes in Toyland, and today Si and Am from Lady and the Tramp. Now and the reason I'm really bringing this up is someone had asked me, are you going to be featuring the song Trick or Treat from the 1952 Donald Duck short called Trick or Treat? And I messaged them and I said no, because this year I'm doing Disney villains, and I guess maybe you could consider Donald Duck to be a villain in that cartoon, but the witch is not a villain in that cartoon. There's not really a villain. So there's no reason to feature that song. However, that doesn't mean you can't listen to it, because if you go to this page, which is if you're on my table of contents up at the top of every page, it's Song of the Day Index. If you go to this page, you'll see a listing of every single song that I have featured as Song of the Day all the way back to January of 2015. And if you go back to October of 2016, 1 year ago, I featured Halloween-specific songs, not villain songs. And as you can see, Trick or Treat from the Donald Duck short, Trick or Treat, is right here. And if you want to listen to the song, all you have to do is click on the little click here at the bottom of each month. There's one. If you click on the 2016, it'll take you to that page, and all of the songs from last year are still listed, and you can listen to all of them. So you don't even have to wait until October 31st for all of the songs to be available. They're available now, right now. They're always available. And there's actually, I did 3 different versions of Trick or Treat last year. One version is from a Disneyland record with the Mouseketeers from 1958. There's another version from the Lawrence Welk Show in 1965. And then I did the original soundtrack version from 1952. So you can really get your Trick or Treat song fix if you're so inclined. In addition to all of these songs, if you scroll down to the bottom of every page, every month on the Song of the Day has this table of contents, this index, and you can navigate to any month you want. So if you want to go to October 2015, click on there, and it'll take you to that page. And there's some of the songs are the same, but several of them are different. I mean, one of the reasons I decided to do villains this year instead of regular Halloween songs is because I was like repeating the same song over and over again. So I wanted to change it up and do different songs. So you can still listen to Halloween songs on my website, but this year's specific song of the day, which I add a new one every month, is Disney Villains. So you can still get your Halloween fix, even though you're not getting a new Halloween song every day. Some of them might kind of cross over as villain and Halloween songs, but for the most part they're just specifically villain songs. Now if I go back to the 2017 page, you'll notice at the bottom I have to listen to special Halloween songs from Disneyland Park, click here. And that's because I added a special page which is from my Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. I created a special page with just the Halloween songs from Disneyland. Just for, it's a temporary page just for October. And all the songs are here. They're still on the regular holiday time page, but for convenience, I put them all together on their own page. And you can get there from the Song of the Day archive page for October 2017. And you can listen to them in 4.5-hour chunks. I've got them in the continual play, which is also part of my regular Disneyland audio tour. So if you're at work, you can listen to them in 4.5-hour installments, and it's all these songs from Disneyland that are Halloween related. So you can definitely get into the Halloween spirit on my website. I'm well prepared for Halloween. So never fear. Ironically, never fear, because Halloween is near. So that was kind of just what I wanted to go over really quickly before I get into the actual audio tour and what I've been working on with that. So that being said, let's get on with it. First of all, there are 2 chapters that I have worked on since we last talked. And of course, if you've been following me, you know that they are Disneyland After Dark. And my new chapter, which is kind of a split off from Disneyland After Dark, called Disneyland Bandstand. And I finally finished setting up all of the songs for final editing. So everything is ready to go and ready to be finalized and added to the site, and I finally started adding some new tracks to the site after several weeks of gathering materials together. I'm ready to get this done, but it's a slow process because the final editing process can be tedious and take a lot of time, especially with some of the things I'm going to mention to you right now. And I'll tell you, some of the edits I've been doing have been really, really trying of my patience. It's a lot of work. First of all, I just want to mention this is a track that we're on chapter 20 right now. I'm going to go over this chapter first, which is Disneyland After Dark. This track, the Main Street Color Guard Flag Retreat Ceremony, has been on the site, but I made one slight little change in the announcer's voice, who is Jack Wagner. I gave it a bit of an echo effect because I was listening to it. I often will listen to the music as I'm going to bed. Like I'll have it running and it'll kind of put me to, it's my nightcap type thing. And this song came up. What I do is I have all the songs on my hard drive and I play them I put them in random, so just whatever song it picks will come up. Well, this song actually came up, and I listened to it, and I was like, I think that voice needs a little more echo, because if you're in the park, it would have kind of that reverb to it. So most of this is the same, but I added a little echo effect to Jack Wagner's voice, so that's why I marked this as new. I did make a slight change, but overall it's the same. Scrolling down, my entire Main Street USA After Dark section is now completed. I had one track left to add, which was the Dapper Dans. These are all songs, barbershop songs, that sort of have a nighttime theme to them. I have like When You Wish Upon a Star, In the Evening by the Moonlight, Sleepy Time Gal, songs that sort of have a, nighttime, sleepy time, dream time, kind of romantic feel to them. These are not authentically the Dapper Dans, but they are barbershop quartets that sound very close to the Dapper Dans. My phone's ringing. Sorry about that, my phone rang. These are songs that are very similar to the Dapper Dans. And they're taken from all different sources. So one of the tricky things about editing it was getting everything to sound the same, because the echo was a little more echoed on some songs than others. And the other thing is there's no instruments. It's all a cappella singing, and there's a lot of like clicking and smacking of the lips and little tiny things that probably most people wouldn't even notice, but to me, I can't stand. I want everything to sound clean and perfect. So this took me hours and hours for a 14-minute track to get right. It was a lot of work, but I finally got it done. So just wanted to mention that the length of a song does not necessarily mean the difficulty in editing it. Sometimes a small thing can be really difficult. Now, this is what I'm currently working on right now, and this is something I wanted to have done for you all this morning. It will probably be done if you're listening to this after October 6th. It will probably be done because I'm going to work on it the rest of the day today. And this is a 40-minute track, and the amount of work that I have to do for this particular track is insane. So far I have about 23 minutes of the 40 minutes done. I spent about 5 hours last night working on like a 5-minute section of this track to clean it up, because there's all this background noise. It all sounds like it's live in the park, so you hear like people walking around and making noise, and that's fine if you're watching it visually, but when it's a listening only experience, it's very distracting. So I went through and I removed a lot of that background disturbance going on while Walt is talking, or just a lot of cleanup involved to make it sound perfect, and also flowing things in, because a lot of times the editing from 1962 is very choppy. I want it to sound nice and fluid, and so you don't notice abrupt changes in the instrumentations and just all sorts of different things that make this really difficult for me to edit. I still have a long way to go, but I'm going to work on it the rest of the day today, and hopefully I'll have it done by this evening. And if you're listening to this late in the day on October 6th, you will probably be able to listen to this track by then. Or if you're listening to it anytime after October 6th. But it's not done yet. It is a work in progress. Cavalcade of Big Bands is new because it was on the site before, but I added a few additional artists to this track and made it about 15 minutes longer. So there's about 5 extra songs that have been added to this. Otherwise it's the same, but this is done. Scrolling down, this is another one that's horrific. I've been working on this I have about 10 minutes done of this. This is about a 35-minute track. Again, this was a live recording done in the Golden Horseshoe, and once they start playing the music, it's really easy to edit. But it's the introductions and the little side conversations they have in between the songs that there's all this background noise, all this disturbance, and I've been trying to get rid of it all, and it is just taking me so much time and energy to get all that fixed, and so it sounds nice and clean, so there's no like banging and clicking and crashing going on underneath the announcer's voice. And the announcer, for those who don't know, is actually Ward Kimball, who is a famous Disney animator. He was also kind of the spokesman for the Firehouse 5+2. So that's his voice you'll hear when you listen to this track. This is already on my Disneyland Records page, and I kind of didn't really do that thorough of a job cleaning it up when I originally posted it. But when I finish editing this version, I'm going to replace the one on my Disneyland Records page also with the new improved version. Okay, so scrolling down, Tahitian Terrace Dinner Show is something I added just a couple of days ago. It is a new version of, some of the music is the same as what was there before, but I added, in addition to like the Polynesian drum music, I added some islands music that was from the same album that the drumming music came from, so it's all fits together nicely. And I took out all the announcements that were made, because the announcements that I had on this track were actually from Disneyland After Dark, Wonderful World of Color. Now those announcements are going to be heard on this track, so I didn't want to also include the announcements on this track because it would be repetitive and it would be kind of strange. So that's why I redid this one. Another one I've been working on is Skiles and Henderson. Again, a live album. This time it's mostly not even musical. It's all stand-up comedy. So this is horrific. I've only gotten 3 minutes of this edited so far, and this is going to be really a tough one. Just a lot of cleanup involved to just get it. I know that, you know, that it was released on an album. They just leave in all the background noise and they don't care. But in my case, I'm a perfectionist. I like everything to sound clean and perfect. So I'm removing all the strange audience noises. Like if someone coughs in the audience, I try to remove the sound of them coughing, or just different things that bother me, and it's not really, you know, so that's why it takes so much time. Another new track that I've added is the Space Bar, and this is kind of a, it's about 5 different songs from different bands that actually performed in Disneyland in the, up to the, from the early to the mid 1960s. And they performed at the Space Bar, a former venue at the old original Tomorrowland. Fantasyland Theater Humdinger, I added, I think, 2 new songs to this. It's exactly the same as what was there before, but I think I added 2 or maybe 3. I can't remember. I added a couple new songs because I found the names of a few other artists that I was not aware of when I originally created this, and I felt that they were important and famous enough that they needed to be included, so I added them. Just a very basic change, but that's done. Tomorrowland Terrace Potpourri. This I only added 1 additional song to the whole thing, so it's almost exactly what was there before with just 1 additional artist that I came across that I added. Okay, I'm going to be redoing the Country Music Jubilee and the Great American Music Machine, but I haven't started working on that yet, and you can still listen to the original versions on the site. That's why it doesn't say new, and they're already available. These are going to get replaced with new versions very soon. Scrolling down, all this is staying the same. Papa Do Run Run, I already mentioned in my video last week or 2 weeks ago that I'm going to be extending this, making it longer, and that's still in the plan. Space Age Disco Concert is a 2-hour and 20-minute mix that I just recently added, and it's all disco music from actual artists who performed in Disneyland in the late 70s. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, some people, you either love disco or you hate it, and I like it, so I enjoyed making this, and I enjoy the music, so if you like disco, you'll love this. Bear Country Hoedown, the Nashville Brass, I finished this. This is a combination of Kids of the Kingdom introductory medley that they would perform at these events. It was all pre-recorded, and they would lip sync and dance to it. And then I have a musical group called the Nashville Brass, and I have several songs by them. And then I end it with a version of Come Again, which is also performed by the Kids of the Kingdom, which is a song that was originally from the Country Bear Jamboree, and it's kind of like a goodbye type song. So it's a really fun little mix that I made here. You might enjoy that. Even if you're not a big country music fan, it's not really what you think of as today's country music. It's, you know, it's more like bluegrass and traditional country music, and so don't prejudge this. Listen to it, and you might enjoy it even if you're not the biggest of country music fans. I personally am not a big country music fan, but I do like old school country. I like bluegrass. I like traditional cowboy type songs. And I like stuff, a lot of stuff from the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s. Once we get up to the 80s, I start to not like country music at all, especially modern day contemporary country. I have a strong dislike for that. But the older stuff I do enjoy. Big bands in Disneyland, I'm really happy to have this on the site now. This is a lot of fun because I found modern day instrumental only recordings of all the different performers, bands that were involved in the Disney Channel 1984 TV series called Big Bands in Disneyland. So it's kind of like a tribute to that TV series in that none of these recordings are from the TV show, but they're all songs that were featured on the TV show, and they're all from bands, or they're all performed in the same style, the same orchestrations as the original bands that appeared on that show. So for example, Cab Calloway performs Minnie the Moocher, but that's a vocal. He sings that song, you know, it's never instrumental, but I actually found a really good instrumental version of it that sounds like the Cab Calloway style, and the same thing goes for all the other artists, but they're modern, you know, digital quality, like they're not vintage recordings, they're modern recordings with, you know, really good sound quality, and it's a lot of fun. I even sent this one to my dad because he's in his 80s and he loves this kind of music. So he's not a big Disney fan, but he loves big band music, so I actually sent him this. I hope he enjoys it. I haven't heard back from him yet. He's not good about internet communication because, again, he's in his 80s. Anyway, moving on. I don't remember if I added anything else to the site. I think to this chapter, at least. I think that's it so far. I still have a little bit more work to do. Oh, yes, I did add this. The Tomorrowland Terrace takes one song from all the different bands that have played at the Terrace in the contemporary era, from the 90s up till today, with a couple other things thrown in from the 80s just and 70s. Two songs that specifically, because they just kind of fit in with the whole vibe of this track. So this is all kind of modern pop music performed by live bands, and they're the actual authentic groups studio recordings by these groups that have actually played at the Disneyland Tomorrowland Terrace. So that is the Chapter 20 Disneyland After Dark. As it stands, I still have a little bit of work left to do, but this one, I'm nearing the finish line on this chapter. It's starting to come to an end, so that's a good thing. I do have, like I said, some major tricky edits left to do, like specifically the Skiles and Henderson and the Firehouse 5+2. Those are some hurdles that are going to, you know, slow up the process. They're going to take me days and days for these little, you know, half-hour tracks to get done, but it's happening. This chapter is nearing a conclusion. Moving on to Chapter 21, Disneyland Bandstand. I made a little bit less additions to this chapter than I did the other chapter, but I have added a couple new things, and I'll quickly go through those. Legendary jazz singers in Disneyland are all vocal performances by actual singers who performed in the park in the 60s and 70s, including Mel Torme, Frank Sinatra Jr., Patti Page, people of that caliber. I wasn't originally representing them, but the more I learned about the different artists that performed there, it's like, oh my goodness, Mel Torme performed in Disneyland. I have to include him. He's Mel Torme, the Velvet Fox. So that's this. It's a 45-minute medley. It's really nice. I'm proud of how that came out. Cavalcade of Big Bands is exactly the same track that is on my Disneyland After Dark chapter, and like the Disneyland After Dark version, I added a few new songs, so that's why this is marked as new. So I already described what that was, so... K-Bell and the Spaceman. As I was doing my track for Chapter 20 called The Space Bar, I made some slight corrections to this track because one of the songs on that other track that I'll show you which one I'm talking about in case you don't remember what I said a minute ago. This track here, The Space Bar, one of the songs included on this is from K-Bell and the Spaceman, as it says right here. So I made I heard a couple little glitches that I fixed, so I went ahead and updated this version too, which is just K-Bell and the Spaceman, because, I made corrections on the other version. Why wouldn't I include that in the other version? Okay, I haven't done any work on this country stuff, but everything is set up and ready to be final edited. All the music is gathered together and it's ready to go. I just have to do it. And I've got all this stuff going on at the same time, so I haven't got to it yet. Space Age, Space Stage, Disco Concert. It's the exact same thing that I just showed you on my other chapter, except there are two songs that I took out because they're going to be included in this track, which is right underneath it, called the Space Stage Voyage. The name of it's going to change to the Space Stage Voyage / Mecco because it's going to have two different artists involved, and the songs by those artists that were included in this I took out because it would be repetitive. It's one thing to have it on a different chapter, it's another thing to have it right next to each other with the exact same songs. So that's why this is like 12 minutes shorter than the other version. I did add the first of many tracks to my Rolling River Review featured performers. I did the Surfin' 60s week, which includes this gentleman here, Frankie Avalon, and a few other famous surfer rock groups from the 60s. I think there's 4 tracks in total. It runs 12 minutes. It's a lot of fun. It's that, type music. So check that out. I've still got all these to do, which are all different types of music. And I've got all my big bands in Disneyland. And this is different than the version on my After Dark page because these will be the actual Disney Channel live performances by all these groups. So these are taken from the actual broadcast, whereas the other version is kind of a tribute to this, where they're not the recordings from the actual broadcast, but studio recordings that are similar to what is on this page, if that makes any sense. Here's another section I need to work on. I haven't done any work on it yet. It's more big bands that did not appear on the Disney Channel around the same time that the Disney Channel thing was going on. And one section that's completely done is my swing bands, which is the 90s and 2000s version of all the big bands. There's like all these different eras of big band music in the park, so it's kind of confusing. There's like the 60s was an era, and then the 80s kind of had an era, and then the 90s and up to the present day had an era, and it's all different types of bands and different types of music, and that's why, well, the music is similar, of course, it's all big band music, but that's why it's all kind of separated the way I have it. It's a little confusing, but there is a logic to my insanity. Tomorrowland Terrace again. I showed you that version on my After Dark page where I just have a medley of all the different songs that runs 45 minutes. Well, these are all the bands that are in that medley. I took one song from each of these and included it in that other medley. So it's kind of an overview of all of this. And this is more of a comprehensive look at like the bands with like, you know, half-hour to 1 hour medleys of their songs. And then I did include, I mentioned I had included 2 other groups in that other version on the Disneyland After Dark page, where those 2 groups are way up here. The other groups I included were Friendship Train and Sunshine Balloon, because even though they started performing in the 70s, both of these groups, they have stuck around, and they actually were performing in the park up until the 90s. So it is appropriate to include these groups in the Tomorrowland Terrace medley that is on the After Dark page, because they really were a part of this as well, even though they weren't brand new groups that to the park. They, you know, they were staples. They were long-time performers, and so they need to be represented in a Tomorrowland Terrace mix, right? So that is my overview. Thank you, Lily. That's my kitty saying hello. That is my overview of everything that has happened on the site since I last updated you. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I might even have Chapter 20 completed by the next time we chat. It definitely is conceivable that that can get done. I have a lot more work to do on Chapter 21, but Chapter 20, I'm seeing the finish line. So I hope everybody is having a great early fall. The weather here in Rhode Island has been amazing, and the leaves are starting to change finally. The days are getting shorter. But I will talk to you all in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.